All right, so today I want to talk about a story out of the Jerusalem Post, and I've seen it posted around many other places, so you could easily find it. But again, it's titled 25% of Young Americans Are Considering Suicide Amid the Virus. So let's read a little bit about it here and then get into it. More than a quarter of U.S. 18 to 24-year-olds and nearly a third of caregivers for adults seriously considered suicide in June, as the pandemic continues to have a significant adverse effect on mental health. The finding, again, it was a CDC study, so I would assume that it's accurate. It was based on a survey of 5,412 people carried out by Qualtrics between June 24th to 30th. 40.9 reported at least one adverse mental or behavioral health condition. 31% said they experienced anxiety or depression. 26 reported trauma or stress related. 13% said they started or increased substance abuse. Well, 11% overall said they had seriously considered suicide. 75% say they had at least one adverse mental health symptom. Um, and the main point, the other important point here, again, you can get into it more if you want, but this is the other one bit too, that this article seems to imply that it's because of the whole virus, but the reality is that it isn't. And they say right here, 40.1 of those who did know someone who had died of the disease reported having experienced mental health conditions against 41% of those who did not personally know someone who had died. So again, the idea that it's because of the virus, I think, is BS. And I think a lot of those people um, that are feeling down because they know someone it's probably partially because of the fact that the mainstream media is blowing it out of proportion. The government is blowing it out of proportion. Again, um, this virus is only slightly worse than the flu, like slightly worse than the flu, and yet has there been anybody? I mean, there probably is some, but who experiences thoughts of suicide when you know someone who dies of the flu, right? So, um, the fact that more people are negatively affected that don't know someone just goes to show again. This is the main point, the main rant that I wanted to kind of touch on here is that just how bad are things going to have to get the vast majority of people to admit that the lockdowns do not work, that this whole mask garbage does not work. Like, I really don't know how bad things are going to have to get. Like, the UN literally estimated that tens of millions of people are going to starve to death because of this. But yet you're perfectly fine with that. Again, you're so selfish that to save you'd rather have your 80-year-old grandparent live an extra couple years rather than the small child in Africa. You'd rather have them starve to death and save I mean, I know it's not a direct correlation, but um, to me, that's incredibly selfish. It's incredibly selfish because if I'm 80 years old and I have some disease and because of government policy, it's probably going to kill small children in Africa. Yeah, take me out back and put me down. Um, so, and again, that's if to me, if you're an honorable person, you kind of have to have that position. But the problem is most people don't. Most people want a virtue signal and pretend they care about the poor, but when it actually comes to caring about the poor, and when they actually have a personal stake in it, then all of a sudden they could care less about the poor, right? Like it's the same thing for these people that want more taxes and they want socialism, but yet they pay the least amount they possibly can on their taxes and they spend literally zero time volunteering or donating money to actually help the poor. So again, they could care less. Um, but again, the main point that I wanted to get back into here is the fact that um, there's I'm not to mention too. I've made videos about some of these, and I've seen plenty more of these stories of doctors that have literally said I've seen more people die of suicide during this whole pandemic scam than have died from the actual virus. I've seen plenty of stories like that. And I really don't know how much of it are we going to have to get before people admit they're wrong. I really don't know. Now, one of the many reasons why, again, a lot of people would point out, well, okay, well, if you're right about this, and why are so many people still going along with the garbage of thinking that the lockdowns work and all this stuff. Well, it's largely a left-right issue, right? Like, I mean, obviously there's exceptions to the rule, but the majority of people that support the lockdowns are people on the left, and the majority of people that disagree are people on the right, right? So the reason why is that many people out there these days, they have this fantasy that, oh, if we don't have enough money for this or that, we can just give people free money, right? Like, we can just give people free money, free housing, free everything. Which they're obviously wrong about. That's literally like delusional stuff that a 5-year-old would think up. But there's probably, I don't know, 10, 20, maybe even a little more percent of the population that actually believes that. Now, again, they won't be directly honest about it, but the minute someone says, yeah, I support socialism or any major socialistic policy, that's what they're telling you, because if you support any socialistic policy, you're literally saying, I want to give away whatever X resource or X service is literally unlimited, because that's what socialism is, right? So that is why many of these people support the lockdowns, is because they think that, oh, we can just pay people not to work. Why would we work? We can just pay people not to work. Why would we not to mention too, like, people got to work to pay their bills. Well, guess what? We can just pay off the people that need that money to pay their bills. And then what happens is that eventually that money trickles back to the rich, and the rich get richer. Which, again, the left likes to gripe, oh, we hate the rich and, oh, the wealth gap, but yet they fail to acknowledge that because of policies that they've supported 100% the entire time, the rich have gotten richer. I mean, look at Walmart, look at Amazon, look at, I mean, Bill Gates is gonna come out of this. Maybe one of the he, if there's a vaccine, Bill Gates probably is going to be richer than Jeff Bezos. This is something that nobody's talking about. Bill Gates will be richer than Jeff, even though he's not. I don't even think he's close right now. But Bill Gates literally said himself he expects to make $100 billion off a vaccine again. So, I mean, what's going to happen is that, if they can get forced vaccines in, even if they can get, let's say they even get half the population, that's still probably pushing $500 billion a year, in money from a vaccine. If they can get the world to do it, okay, well, that we're talking probably a trillion, maybe, or close to it, right? So people don't realize just how much money is in this kind of stuff. So, but anyway, getting back to the main point here being is that, this is absolutely terrible what's going on right now. And the other thing that I will point out here is that people think that we're out of the woods, like we're close to it, right? But we are not. The economic ramifications, the societal ramifications from this, I think will go on for a long time. Now, how long that could be exactly, could be two, a year, two, three. It could be decades. It literally could be, and not to mention, I probably think that it will, because something that's going to come out of this, is going to be a new. I mean, there's going to be many new normals, almost all of it being terrible, and it's going to hurt more than it's going to help. But, I think the government's going to be running massive deficits, which is going to just drive inflation through the roof at some point. Um, I think that there's going to be somewhat of a UBI. I mean, I think there's going to be many things, and not to mention too, I think society is going to continue to degrade more and more and more, because, political tensions are only getting worse. I mean, especially with the U.S. elections going on right now. I mean, the Trudeau government is the scandal is getting worse and worse by the day, and yet again, the political tensions are getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't think it's going to get any better until we reach a tipping point. And I think the tipping point is going to be the worst, economy. Like, I mean, I'm talking like 50% unemployment, massive homelessness. I think something like that will be the trigger point, because, um, the government is committed right now to, rather than just, um, admitting that we've been going about things completely wrong. I mean, to maintain the current levels of things in Canada, the government of Canada is having to run a $500 billion deficit. So to give everyone all this free stuff, they got to give out a $500 billion, and that's just right now. By the end of the year, it's probably going to be even more. So the government's never going to admit, hey, we've gone about this completely wrong. We can't just give away all this free stuff. Like, we can't do it, because in the long run, it's literally impossible for it to work out. If you understand basic math, it's literally like me coming up to someone and being like, hey, I'm going to literally max out my credit card literally every month. And when I can't do that anymore, I'm going to go get another credit card and I'm going to take out a second mortgage. I'm going to take out a line of equity on my house. I'm going to do, I'm going to, put up my car as, I'm going to put up literally every possession I have as collateral. This is literally what the government is doing. This is what the government is doing. And the only difference is that the government can get away with it longer than the average person because they are the government. But eventually it's going to blow up in our face. And the government at this point, it's rather obvious that they are committed to riding it out as long as they possibly can. But again, the problem with that is that what happens when you ignore a problem? Well, the problem only gets worse. So, and the argument against cutting back spending and getting all this craziness in control is, oh well, poor people are going to die. Well, guess what? Poor people are already dying, and if we keep going the way we're going, far more people are going to die. Again, we can have a little bit of people die right now, and we can fix things maybe forever if we do it right, or we can have massive amounts of people die. Take your pick. And again, the problem too is people like to pretend that there's no alternative. It's just that they have the fantasy that we can continue going the way we're going. But again, to kind of sum up the main point here, the fact that so many people like that this kind of stuff is going on, again, it's just the millionth piece of evidence, it seems, that the lockdowns did way more harm than good. And like I say too, we're not out of the woods yet. We're going to have high unemployment for at least the next year or two, maybe longer, depending on how long they can push these crazy restrictions for. um, so yeah, we're gonna have this kind of stuff's not gonna get much better anytime soon. Most people out there nowadays seem to like to pretend that things are back to normal and all this kind of stuff when they really aren't. We still have double-digit unemployment in Alberta. You got 25% of people committing, considering suicide. Like, that is not a society that is going along just fine. That sounds like a society that's literally about to collapse. Like, we are, literally on the brink of collapse. And that is the problem with Canada right now. I mean, I think Canada's in worse shape than the States, given the fact that I think the States at least has a half decent leader. I think that they still I think that more, as a percent of the population, more Americans have their heads on straight than Canadian. As much as Canadians hate to hear that. Um, yeah, that's basically what I wanted to bring up, I guess. But yeah, we are not out of the woods yet. Again, a lot of people think we're out of the woods. Um, a lot of people, not to mention too, I think as the economy doesn't, I mean, not to mention too, the reason I forgot to bring this up. The reason why I think that Canada is not going to get, or Canada is in worse shape than the States, is that we just had Freeland and Trudeau come out yesterday to where, oh, the restart of the Canadian economy needs to be green, which is basically code for, we want mass unemployment, we want energy costs to go way up. That's basically what they're saying. We want the cost of living to go way up, and we want unemployment to go way up. That's a great combination, isn't it? So yeah, that Canada is in for a world of hurt. And you talk to people, and most people just don't realize just how crazy things are going, because they don't want, again, knowledge is responsibility, right? Like, the minute that you're aware of this kind of stuff, anybody with any shred of a moral spine feels the need to do something. But if people can pretend that it's not an issue, they feel like, oh, I don't have to do anything, I'm just completely ignorant, right? So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So anyway, if you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you follow me on those other platforms. I got them all linked up in the description. Make sure you follow me and like everything, because again, I can't stress just how important it is to do that kind of stuff in times like today. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there.